Welcome back once again. If you're just joining us, it is still Daybreak. Now, before we went on the break, myself and Ezekiel, we were trying to understand the situation in the country, looking back at history. Now, let's move forward. Nigeria is a multi-ethnic state. We all know that. Now, a lot of people believe that this may be one of the reasons why we have most of the problems that we have in the country. Not my opinion, but the opinion of some analysts. Now, being a multi-ethnic state, it comes with different socio-political and, of course, cultural affinity. Some analysts believe that the problems, or our political problems, hinges on the fact that we have this background, while some other analysts believe that no, it is not a problem, it is our strength. To discuss this issue today, we have the topic that we want to take a look at: ethnic politics in Nigeria, effect on our democracy, and rule of law. We have a guest to do justice to that. He's looking all cultural or dapper this morning. Is Dr. Charles Omotayo. Dr. Charles Omotayo started his career as a field research fellow for the European Research Council, ERC, sponsored international collaborative research projects between University of Birmingham and Osun State University between 2012 and 2018. After which he joined the services of McPherson University, Ondo State, as a lecturer of history and international studies, where he was until February 2019, when he joined Adeyemi Federal University of Education, Ondo State, as a lecturer of history. He is sitting down right here. It's so nice to have you on our show today.
Thank you very much.
Good morning and welcome on Daybreak Africa, Doctor.
Good morning.
For me, I don't like wasting time, so I know you know me for that. Personally, I want to know your perception. How would you describe the current state of ethnicity in politics in Nigeria and its impact in the country's democratic process so far?
You see, to understand the state of ethnicity in politics, we really need to go back to history. We really need to understand where we are coming from and how we got here. You see, the problem of ethnic politics all started in 1946, and that was with the Richard Constitution of 1946. The Richard Constitution of 1946 was the constitution that actually introduced regionalism into our politics. It was that constitution that pushed the narrative that for you to actually participate in politics in Nigeria, you need to belong to a region. So the political parties that sprang up during that era were colored by ethnicity. It was a political party that was dominated by the various regional groups. Do you understand? And since then, it has been the central theme. Ethnicity has been the central characteristic of our politics up to date. So if you look at the political landscape today, you see that every political decision, every political policy, every constitutional program is colored by ethnicity. And as long as we continue on this trajectory, we are going to move one step forward and two steps backward. And for me, that is not a progress.
Now, before colonialism, we existed as a unit. We existed as a people. Before the lines were drawn on the map, we were one people. Even though we were not identified as Nigerians, but we existed as a people despite the different languages, despite the different culture, or whatever name we decide to call it. But immediately we had, like what you've said now, colonialism, and of course we were divided into regions. Somehow these problems began to spring up. Now the question I'm asking is, in a country where we have over or about 300 languages, a country without lines once upon a time, why would we allow ethnicity to divide us? That's number one. And the fact that three major ethnic groups were able to carve themselves out, talking about the Yoruba, the Igbo, and the Hausa unit, despite the fact that we have other languages, other cultures that existed side by side. Why would we sit back and allow such polarity?
I need to correct you on something. You said before colonialism we existed as one people. No, that's not true.
Okay.
You see, before colonialism, we did not exist as one people.
Okay.
The Yoruba people had their own system, had their own culture, had their own political culture, their own political system, and it was centralized. The Igbo people also had their own system, had their own culture, had their own political system, and it was not centralized.
Okay.
We were not one people.
Okay.
But we respected our boundaries, we had intergroup relations, but we're never one people.
I should have rephrased it. That was exactly the point I was trying to make. We existed together,
yes,
without any problems.
Yes.
But the moment the lines were drawn in the maps, of course, the breakage started. So the question is, why would we allow that to happen to the extent that even today, after independence, after colonialism, these problems continue to rear their heads?
It was basically the foundation laid by the colonial administrators. You see, by the time the colonial administrators were living in 1960, in fact, before 1960, when the southern people were agitating for independence, the northerners were not ready. The northerners were not ready for self-government. When the Nauru moved the motion for self-government in 1956, the northerners were not in support of it. And eventually, when the colonial administrators were to hand over the government to Nigerians, they handed it over to a northerner. You understand? So from that very moment, you understand, it has always been, the struggle has always been over political control, over resource allocation. You understand? So that foundation was faulty. And it was that foundation of 1960 that led to the crisis of 1962 and eventually 1963 when Nigeria became a republic. When Nigeria became a republic in 1963, that problem of ethnicity continued to surface. And that was what manifested in 1966 when the military guys took over. You understand? So the foundation had been faulty. And from that first republic, the first republic was a republic of ethnicity. Majorly ethnicity. When the military guys took over in 1966, the military coup of 1966, to some extent, scholars and analysts had regarded that coup as an ethnic cleansing. When a particular group of ethnic people, military guys, killed another set of military guys. You understand? So this problem of this concept or this issue of ethnicity in our politics has continued to rear its ugly heads across all boards up to today. And one of the major reasons is because, one, from that moment in 1960 till date, we do not trust ourselves. An average man from the north does not trust an average man from the east with power. An average man from the east does not trust an average man from the west with power. So they believe that when a Western man or a man from the South is at the head of the country or is at the head of things, they are not going to bring the dividends of democracy down to the region. So every leader that gets into the position of the first citizen of the country looks after his own region first before others. And as a result, every region or every tribe or or the major ones, let me call it the major ones, wants to be at the head of affairs.
Now, for one, I know our pre-democracy, it was quite a chaos, talking about 1940s, 1960s and all that. But ever since the emergence of democracy, don't you think it probably got better at some point?
To be sincere, yes.
People had the opportunity to come together and then vote.
Yes.
So how would you describe this period, pre and prior?
I think this period is better. It's better because in the last 20 years, since the return of democracy, there is inclusive governance. People can now participate. You know, at least for the first time, we have uninterrupted transition of government from one civilian to another. But even at that, the problem of ethnicity is still there. That is why every 4 years during the period of election, you see that one major thing that political parties consider is ethnicity. If they are picking the president from the south, they must pick the vice president from the north. It has always been like that from 1999. So we are getting better in all sincerity, but I think if we really want to get better, we should push ethnicity back and emphasize on meritocracy, character, and competence. And I think this should be the key thing. But because of the configuration of our political landscape, because of the configuration of our country, ethnicity has always been an issue.
Like I did ask the question because it is one question that has bothered me a lot, and I've not had a fora or opportunity to ask or vent it, and I want to ask today.
Okay.
Now, we're talking about ethnicity and its coloration on our democracy and rule of law. Now, colonialism was fingered, you know, as the build-up of the foundation that has put us as a people in this situation. During that era, that period, 3 major ethnic groups were able to arm themselves and come forward, even though they are not the only group we have in the country. We have other languages. Now, oftentimes they tell you that number is power. So if you bond together the other tribes, if you look at it from another angle, it therefore means that the other tribes are even more than the Yorubas, the Igbos, and the Hausas. But from our history, we've seen that just 3 major languages have been on the forefront, dwarfing other tribes. Don't you even think somehow that could be another problem that we face in our political system?
Yes, it is actually a problem. But like you said, number is power. Let's take the Ijaws, for example. What's the total population of the Ijaws in Nigeria? There are a number of minority groups in Nigeria that has been submerged into the larger political groups, into the larger ethnic groups, as it were. You understand? But the truth of the matter is that as long as politics is a game of numbers, this minority group may not necessarily, I use that word, may not necessarily find their way, because politics is all about numbers. One way for them to actually become, one way for them to actually feature prominently is for them to actually attach to the major groups. And that was the case with Goodluck Jonathan. You understand? 2 ways through which the minority ethnic groups can feature prominently is for them to join the mainstream political parties, the national political parties, and secondly is for them to actually attach themselves to one of the major ethnic groups in the country. That is just the reality. As long as politics is a game of numbers, you cannot, when you put it side by side, you cannot compare the numbers of the Ijaws to the numbers of the Yorubas. You cannot compare the numbers of other minor groups to the number of the Hausas, Fulani, and that of the Igbos.
All right, Doctor, can you take us through the role ethnic loyalty plays in Nigerian politics, especially as regarding voting patterns and political alliance? And with all this put in place, do you actually see us going forward, you know, with all these ethnic political alliances around? Do you see us moving forward as a country?
I think it was in 2019 or thereabout, Fashola, the former governor of Lagos State, while he was undergoing screening at the National Assembly, he said something that may our loyalty not be tested. He said, may our loyalty not be tested. You know, in other words, we can say an angel you know. There's this saying that an angel you know is better than the devil you don't know. I use these words to actually make us understand the psyche of an average Nigerian. An average Nigerian would rather prefer they have their man as the president than people from outside their ethnic configuration. And why is it so? It is so because of the way our society is structured. People see governance and government as an opportunity for resource control. People see politics as an opportunity for ethnic development. They do not see it as an avenue for the development of our collective society. They do not see it as an opportunity for the growth of humanity. They see it as what comes to me, what comes to our region, what comes to our town, what comes to our village. And as long as that loyalty remains, it will be very difficult for us to have holistic development. Because even the candidates, when they emerge, you see that every town, every community, every state presents a demand to the candidates, to the person in office. Just get a political appointment today. Even as an SSA to A or SA to assistant something or to PA, The people in your village comes up with a lot of demands. So the way forward is for us to have a reorientation, to educate our people to understand that going into government is a service. And that service is not for my group, that service is not for my village, that service is for humanity. And that is what happens in other climes. That is what happens in other society. And that is why you see that societies that are cosmopolitan are societies where services are pushed as the first criteria. When Barack Obama was to contest as the president of America, what was the slogan? The slogan was, "Yes, I can." So people did not even ask, where is he coming from? People were not bothered about his background. People were not bothered about his ancestry. People were not bothered about his color. People were bothered about what he can do, what he has in stock for the American people. And he became one of the best presidents in the history of America. So if we are going to move ahead, we must start to reorient our people. We must start to let people understand that going into politics or leadership, as it were, is not all about sentimental dividends for a particular group of people. It is for everybody. So once we get that right, half of our problem is already solved. Half. Every other thing will come after that. But as long as everybody prepares for when it is going to be their turn, you understand? So when it is our turn, that means that the other regions of the country are marginalized. And those that are there at the present moment believe that it is our turn. You understand? It is our turn to take all the juicy appointments. When Buhari was the president, Yoruba were complaining that the entire architecture of security in the country were placed in the hands of northerners. Now Tinubu is the president, the northern people are complaining that the entire economic structure of the country is placed in the hands of the westerners. So as long as we have that mindset, it is going to be very difficult.
But as a people, just how much do you think we have suffered from this tragedy, this ethnic bias? As a people, just how much do you think we have suffered from? And especially as regarding national unity, it's more like it tends to disseminate us from loving each other as a people. So just how much have this actually eaten up Nigeria as a people?
It has eaten so much to the extent that we do not trust ourselves. And that is just the reality. I said it earlier on that an average Igbo man does not trust an average Yoruba man. It is as simple as that. The few places where we trust ourselves or where we come to unite is in the area of football and even entertainment. And in recent time now, even in entertainment, ethnicity is gradually moving into it. It is only football, and football is a matter of time. And the reason why football is different is because we all want to win. When we win, it is Nigeria that is winning, not Yoruba, not Igbo, not Hausa. But in entertainment, seriously, these days, even recently, there was an argument who actually founded Nollywood. Oh, the Nollywood belongs to the Igbo, Nollywood belongs to the Yoruba. You now see that ethnicity has somehow found its way in other sectors of the economy. And where does it start from? Politics.
Now it's I don't know. I get emotional when I talk about issues like this. Like the topic we're taking a look at today is the effect of ethnic politics on democracy and, of course, rule of law in Nigeria. Ezekiel asked how much we have suffered because of ethnicity in the country. And the question I want to ask is, where do we put a stop to it? How? Where do we put? How do we put? When do we put a stop to ethnicity? Is it possible for us to put a stop to ethnicity? That's one. And how much effect beyond what you've mentioned has ethnicity eaten into our democracy or our democratic life, like you rightly said? It should be about integrity. It should be about what you're able to deliver. But that's not the story. Everybody wants someone from their region to become the president, the governor. Again, do we really see that play out when these people get into power? Is another question. How much do you enjoy from someone you voted in based on ethnicity? Do they remember when they get there? Do you think Nigeria has benefited thus far?
Yes, to answer your first question, if we can actually put a stop to ethnicity, I would say no, we cannot.
Why not?
Because humans, by nature, we are sentimental. We can actually reduce it to the barest minimum. How? By one, ensuring that we understand what governance is all about. I said this earlier. You understood what governance is all about. That governance or government is all about service. Once we incorporate that into our national life and people understand that we need people who are actually going to bring governance closer to the grassroots, once we get that understanding, we have solved a major part of our problem. But because of the nature of humans, because of our emotional attachment, people, it will be so difficult for me to have a brother that is contesting for a post and leave that brother and go for another candidate.
What about the place of integrity?
That is what I'm saying, that because of the nature of humans, by nature humans are sentimental. There is this emotional attachment that I am closer to this person understands my language, this person understands my culture. As a result, I rather prefer this person by nature.
So,
but
sorry to cut you. Is it a Nigerian thing or an African thing? Because in other climes, when people know that their father, their mother, their brother, their sister, their in-laws are not capable, they're the first whistleblowers. They're the first people that will come forward to say, hello, country, this person can be trusted. My brother cannot be trusted. My sister cannot be trusted. They come forward with resume why certain people cannot hold certain offices. But when it comes to our turn, even though we know this person is not capable of delivering, or we go haywire, is our turn.
Okay.
Is our turn.
You see,
why?
It is not a Nigerian thing. It is a human thing. Just the way it is applicable in Nigeria and the way it is applicable in Africa, it is also applicable in the Western world. It is applicable in America. There are times when the whites do not want a candidate that is black. And there are times when the blacks actually want a candidate that is black. Because we are humans. Do you get that? But there was something that you said. Now, I put this to you. One problem we have in Nigeria is because we do not push our best candidates forward. So in every election cycle, what we have is two devils. So the choices before the people is for the people to choose the best among the two devils. We have candidates, we have good people all over the world who are making the country proud. But when it is time for election, the political parties, what do? They push our worst. And that is where Nigerian case is different from the Western world.
Personally, I think to wonder there's a relationship between ethnic politics and the persistent violence you have in regions in Nigeria. But just for you answer that question, we have to go on a short break. And when we get back, Daybreak will continue. Please stay tuned.
Welcome back. Yes, the conversation is still on and our guest is still here. Dr. Omotayo is still here. Before we went on the short break, Ezekiel did ask a question that it was asking our guest if it could actually relate the violence, the spirit of violence we are experiencing in Nigeria to ethnic politics. Of course, the foundation of ethnic politics in Nigeria. I just wonder if you agree or disagree.
If I agree to what? Please come again.
To the fact that the foundation of ethnic politics that we have could be traced to the spate of violence that we're experiencing in the country today. Of course, insecurity is part of it.
Yes, to some extent. And this is the reason. The reason is because every political structure, in every political dispensation, in every political era since 1960, every era has always benefited a particular ethnic group at the expense of another. If you look at it era by era, there is no dispensation in our political history where a particular ethnic group do not feel marginalized. As a result, there are always agitations. There are always complaints. And sometimes these agitations and these complaints become violence. Let's look at the last dispensation. Let's take the Sunday Igbo scenario, for instance. What was the case? It was the case of Fulani cattle herders and farmers in Okeogun. He stepped into the case and he became a local hero, championing the cause of the people in that part. And before you knew it, he had an issue with the security structure of Nigeria. And that was because in that political era, the people of that region felt marginalized. Also during that political era, we also had the marginalization, or the alleged marginalization of the Igbo people, which led to the popularity and the prominence of Nnamdi Kanu. So since 1960, in every political dispensation and political era, there are always a group or two that feels marginalized. So far, we have not had a government that tries to unify the people, either through political policies or political programs or political dividends or dividends of democracy. We have not had.
Does that include the present government?
Yes. In fact, particularly concerning the present government, we have not had. This present government is 1 year in office. I put this to you. Can you pinpoint one major thing that this government has done differently to unite the people of Nigeria? Can you pinpoint one? So, okay, this is what this government has done to make the people feel we are one, that Nigeria is one, and there is a new beginning. For me, I cannot. I don't know if you can.
Is it time for the electorate, and in quote, Nigerians, to begin to demand that leaders create unity?
Which electorates are going to do that? The same. You see, what we have in this country is the commercialization of poverty. You cannot, people who are poor, who are actually looking for how to survive. And that is why it is so difficult for us to get it right. Because poverty has been commercialized. An average man in Nigeria just wants to survive. And because the government understands these things, what they do every 4 years is to bring a peanut and give to the people. The people actually know that this candidate is bad. This government is bad. But at that material time, because the government can provide for them something that brings them temporary relief, they forsake it. And that is what is happening.
Now, let's take a look at the Nigerian Constitution, the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, there are some analysts who believe that, like, we started with a colonial foundation that put us in this situation, but there are other school of thoughts that believe that the 1999 Constitution is a major problem in terms of our political system, that the military imposed that Constitution on us, and the major political problems that we are having in the country can as well be traced to the 1999 Constitution as amended. I don't know if you agree with the school of thought.
Totally. And I'll tell you why. You see, one of the major deficiencies of the 1999 Constitution is that the Constitution places so much power in the central government, in the federal government. The Constitution made the federal government so powerful that everything about our political development revolves around the federal government. We are not practicing true federalism in this country. In America practices federalism, but in America, it is the states of the federation that gives to the center, not the other way around. In Nigeria, every allocation that goes to the states comes from the federal government. So that means that if the federal government decides that this month we are not giving allocation to Ondo State will not survive. Ondo State cannot survive.
But from the beginning, it wasn't so.
No, it wasn't so. It wasn't so. The powers given. Look at all the states in the country, for example. How many states actually have a strong local government system? The government of the federal, the government at the center has so much power. The government at the state has completely taken over the structures of the local government. And all these were made possible because of the 1999 Constitution. And what we should have done since 1999, that Constitution was definitely, literally forced on the people. You understand? What we should have done...
By the military?
Yes, by the military. What we should have done is for us to have completely reviewed that Constitution, But do you know why we have not done that? Because the constitution favors the political class. The deficiencies of that constitution is a plus to the political class. And as long as they benefit from that fundamental deficiency, they will not want to correct it. They will not want. Who is aware of the deficiency, or the president, they are aware of this deficiency. You understand? In other places, I go back again to America. In America, the senators and the members of the National House of Assembly, they do not get paid the way we are getting paid. So every politician in Nigeria sees government as a major source of revenue. It is supposed to be a source, it's supposed to be a platform for service. And there are people in this country who have been in government for 20 years, all their life. Look at the chief of staff of the president, Femi Gbajabiamila. He has been in government for 20 years. And I put this to you, how does a man be in government for 20 years? What has he been doing there? There is something that is actually attractive. And that is why you see that every election time, people, by all means, wants to be in government because they know that it is lucrative. So if we really want the right people to be in government, we must de-emphasize on the gains that they get from it. We must de-emphasize. And we are going to do it. The very moment we de-emphasize, if going into government and you know that your total package at the end of the month is 200,000, you are not going to get official car, you are not going to get official accommodation, you are not going to get allowances for wardrobe, allowances for newspaper, you will stay and do other things. Then the right people will get into government. But these people are quite aware of these lapses, and that is one of the reasons why they have refused, I use the word refused, to correct the 1999 constitution. They know the lapses. So analysts will always analyze, commentators will comment, people will speak and say all kinds of things about the constitution. But whose responsibility is it to correct the errors of that constitution? The members of the House of Assembly. A man who is collecting 10 million naira per month for doing nothing, you think that man will go back and correct the constitution and say, no, we should not be collecting anything? It's not possible.
Now, Doctor, change begins with one person. I say this all the time. Through history, change often begins with one person who has a vision, moves with it, then gathers people to help propel that vision. So, if the people you mentioned are not making the changes, and every day we cry that the Constitution needs to be looked into, we need to change the Constitution, we need to come together as one people, sit down and look at what will work for us. This, I've heard this year in, year out, government after government. So where and how do we begin to create this change? Because the political class you're talking about, they're just a few, you can actually count them.
Few but powerful.
Compared to the 200 million, in fact, we don't even know, in fact, we believe that we are over or almost 300 million people.
Yeah.
How many is the political class?
Okay.
So how come we're able to create that change?
I'll give you two examples. Do you know Dora Akunyili? Do you know her?
I do.
She's late, yes. The same Dora of NAFDAC.
Yes.
And eventually she became a minister of information.
Yes.
She brought a slogan and she was on a mission to rebrand Nigeria. Great, good people, great nation, which was a massive initiative. You understand? From her days in NAFDAC, Dora was a Margaret Thatcher trying to bring change, which she did. She survived and she sanitized the system. You understand? She sanitized the system. For the first time, people came to know about NAFDAC. People came to understand.
All over the world.
All over the world. People came to understand the need for ethical standard. People came to understand the need for quality all over the country. She's dead now. What happens to NAFDAC? What happens to NAFDAC? While she was in government, she brought the slogan, good people, great nation. National Orientation Agency all over the world. It was an initiative to rebrand the image of Nigeria, and both at home and in diaspora. Where's NAFDAC? Where is she today? What happened to that initiative? I gave you these two examples to make you understand that the political class may be minute, may be very small, but very powerful. Very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. Sometimes in the political palace, they call them a cabal. But the truth of the matter is that if these people do not want any change, it will be very difficult. It will be very difficult. So how do we go about it? Is this the way we are going to continue? No, this is not the way we are going to continue. So where do we start from? We start from catching the young ones, making the next generation to understand that we cannot continue like this. I teach in the university. I tell my students every day that do not allow the society to determine your values. Do not allow the society to determine your future. It will be difficult for one man. Yes, change can begin with us. But we must encourage that change to move beyond one person. When that change moves beyond one person and it is a group, then it can be sustained. The reason why the legacies of Dora Akunyili were not sustained was because everything revolves around her personality. And the moment she was out of the scene, her initiatives, her ideas went down. So we need to emphasize on building people, building institutions. If the change is not all about one person, then it will be sustained. If the change becomes part of our system, then it will be sustained.
What about continuity?
That is what I'm saying.
We don't have continuity.
That is what I'm saying, that we need to...
As a culture.
As a culture, yes, we don't. We don't. And the reason why we don't is because of our economics. People are not... It is when you have something, when you are comfortable, that you think about continuing something. Somebody was telling me a story the other day. A woman has 3 children and was looking for all means to pay their school fees. And somebody offered her a huge sum of money to pay if she's ready to do something immoral. And the woman was about considering it. Now you begin to wonder, is she doing the right thing or not? How far can a mother go to take care of her kids? So some of these things are based on economic realities.
Is it just economic reality, or would you share the sentiment where people believe social media and misinformation has tended to escalate the tension of ethnicity in
These
Nigeria?
are recent developments, my brother. Social media escalating
Social
tension.
media recent, yes, but misinformation has always been in time past.
But it has always been contained.
Contained?
Yes, in the age of radio, TV, it was contained. Because an average man cannot just go into the radio station to pass information. You cannot just write something in the newspaper.
It's called freedom of speech.
Yes, it is called, but they are gatekeepers that checkmate these things. But this is the age of social media. I can stay in my room and put so much on the internet. There is nobody checkmating me. There's nobody checkmating me. So that's the difference. The difference between that era and this era is that on social media, there are no gatekeepers. There are no regulators. And as a result, somebody can just wake up in the middle of the night and create an alarm. Oh, something is happening in our hostel. Oh, the entire school is burning, and put it on social media and go live. And people all over the world takes that as the truth.
And run with it.
And run with it.
So we are almost out of time. Forgive me, Anire. But as regarding in relationship to corruption and accountability, do you think this ethnic bias has really tended to hamper rule of law in Nigeria?
My brother, see what is happening in Kogi State. The immediate past governor of Kogi State, Yaya Bello. See what is happening.
But one event is not actually enough to, generalize a particular...
I'm only giving you a case study. I can give you 10 examples. I'm only making you to understand that ethnicity has also eaten deep into the crusade against corruption.
And rule of law.
And rule of law, of course. You understand? And his case is not just the first. There are people who are having corruption cases that the corruption agencies cannot try simply because they are from a particular tribe. And if they try it, the people of that community or the people of that group will rise up and see it as witch hunting. So it has always been like that. When the government is trying to do something right, the people from the other side suspect it as an attack on their person. And the reason that is being so is because sometimes the government themselves are not being sincere. So equality in treating people is not there.
What's your last word on this, on the effect of ethnic politics on democracy and rule of law? And
added to that, how best do you think we could mitigate it as a nation and as a people?
I'll start from the 1999 Constitution. I think the Constitution of 1999 is outdated, and there is need for us to actually come to reality with our contemporary realities. That's number one. There is need for us to actually holistically this time. Since 1999, what we have been having in the Constitution is just portion by portion review. You know, changes here and there. This act is being amended. This act is being amended. I think what we need is a comprehensive and holistic review of that Constitution. Don't you
think that would take a long while? I mean,
if it takes a long while and it gets us on the right track, then that is better.
It could take decades.
Yes. Why will it take decades? It does not take a year to review.
I mean, you said holistic overhaul.
Yes, holistic overhaul. How many years did it take the military guys to put that Constitution together? Abubakar Abdul Salam was the military president in 1999. The guy himself did not spend more than 1 year, and he gave us a constitution. All we need is a political will. If the government of the day is interested in getting us a constitution, it can be done in 6 months. It does not take forever to draft a constitution, and that is one. Number two is for us to actually push a new culture, push a new value across board, from our schools to our religious institution, to let people understand that government is not about our people. It is not about our tribe. It is not about our ethnicity. It is about all of us. Government is about all of us. We must encourage people to preach unity. We must encourage people to understand that for a person to be in government, that person is not for us. It is for everybody. The very moment people begin to understand that this person is in government to serve humanity and not to come and build gutter in our streets and not to come and put street lights in our domain. As long as this person is providing security for everybody and the economy is stabilized, then we are good to go. Once we have that orientation, that is number two. Number three, people must understand that power is transient. It is not going to be with us forever. So we should not see political power as an instrument to accumulate resources unnecessarily. If we can achieve these things, then the future is going to be bright. Thank you very much.
We want to thank you, Doctor, for coming on the show. If you just joined us, you've missed the whole conversation, but not to worry. You can catch up on YouTube, so you can watch the entire conversation. You do indeed need it. This is where we draw the curtain on today's Daybreak. I've had a wonderful time. I don't know about Ezekiel.
I sure did.
So keep it a day with us again tomorrow, same station, same time. My name is Anire. Binitie. Stay safe. Bye for now.
You do have a great day ahead. I remain Ezekiel Ogar.